Good morning, everyone. Daniel Kerr here. I don't know where you're watching from, but it's about 6 a.m. here. If you have felt the calling of God before in your life, and now it seems that confusing spirits or confusing influences or your own mind have intervened to try to stop you from figuring out exactly which direction you're supposed to move in or where you're supposed to go, I'm going to give you one answer that could be the solution to your problem. In 1 Samuel chapter 15, Saul has recently been anointed king by Samuel, and he's already started to mess up. Kind of put him on shaky ground. In the Old Testament, they had a different dispensation and a different relationship with the Father than we have today as Christians, and he wasn't listening. But God has, in this chapter, decided to take revenge on the Amalekites for not letting the children of Israel pass through. And he orders, through the mouth of Samuel, for Saul to go in and utterly destroy the Amalekites. That includes all livestock, babies, old people, women, suckling infants, everything, which is one of the most contentious verses in the Bible. There are reasons for that, and I don't want to go into it, but that's not the point of this video. So I'm just going to read the passage where he gives Saul, through Samuel's voice, the instructions. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. Sounds a little familiar. So Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 foot soldiers, 10,000 men of Judah. Saul came to a city of Amalek and lay in wait in the valley. Then he tells the Kenites who are with the Amalekites to get out of there because they were kind to Israel when they crossed through from Egypt, and he doesn't want to kill them with the Amalekites, and so they take off. And Saul attacked the Amalekites from Havilah all the way to Shur, which is east of Egypt. He also took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, the oxen, the fatlings, the lamb, all that was good, and was unwilling to utterly destroy them, but everything despised and worthless, that they utterly destroyed. So he kept all the good stuff that he wasn't supposed to keep, and he kept the king alive, which he wasn't supposed to do. Basically, if you've been called by God to do something, and you move in that direction to do what God has asked you to do, you know in your heart what he's asked you to do, and you are half-stepping. You're making some amends that kind of adjust or kind of in your own eyes are good ideas that follow more logic. God's not interested in your logic. He never calls you to do things that you're qualified to do. So he's asking for your utter obedience. But if you are kind of obeying and you're trying to get on the right path, but there are certain areas where you're holding back or changing things, then you find yourself in the same situation with Saul. Now Samuel finds out what happened, and then Saul lies to him. Let's look at it. Verse 13. Then Samuel went to Saul, and Saul said to him, Blessed, you of the Lord, I have performed the commandments of the Lord. But Samuel said, Well then, what is this bleating of the sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the oxen which I hear? And Saul said, here's where he starts to lie, backpedal. Saul said, They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice to the Lord your God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. A good indication of where Saul's heart is at this point is because he keeps saying the Lord your God and not the Lord our God. And Samuel said to Saul, Be quiet. I'll tell you what the Lord said to me last night. And he said to him, Speak on. So Samuel said, When you were little in your own eyes, weren't you the head of the tribes of Israel? And did not the Lord anoint you king over Israel? Now the Lord sent you on a mission and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they were consumed. Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Why did you swoop down on the spoil and do evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul said to Samuel, lying again, like a child caught with his fingers in the cookie jar trying to justify himself, But I have obeyed the voice of the Lord. I went on the mission on which the Lord sent me, and I brought back Agag, king of Amalek. I have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the plunder, sheep and oxen, the best of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice to the Lord, your God, in Gilgal. So this time he repeats himself, he backpedals, he justifies what he did, and he blames it on the people and not on himself. So he would have been much better off if he didn't heed the call of the Lord at all. If he was going to do things right in his own eyes and not obey, and was going to change things and going to make more logical decisions, he would have been better off not doing what God had called him to do. In verse 14 of chapter 16, the results are presented, the results of his actions. But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a distressing spirit from the Lord troubled him. And Saul's servants said to him, "Surely a distressing spirit from God is troubling you." Now they had, in the Old Testament, even being God's chosen people, the only people that God actually spoke with face to face, they had a limited understanding of God's nature. We know that God doesn't send troubling spirits, all right? But we also know that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. So if God's Spirit departs from a person, that opens the door for a distressing spirit, a confusing spirit, a spirit of bewilderment to come in and vex that person's mind. Now we're Christians. We can't lose the Spirit of God that easily. I'm not saying it can't happen. Some people believe you can never lose your salvation. That's not scriptural. Check out the book of Hebrews. We'll get into that another time. Nonetheless, before you were a Christian, there's no amount of good deeds that you could do that would get you into the Spirit of God, into the family. And now that you're in the family, there's no amount of evil that you can do that God won't forgive and his Spirit will depart from you. However, because our relationship with God has changed, you and I have the option of turning our face in our life away from the Spirit of God and not listening to what he's saying. And just like Saul, that opens the door for a bewildering spirit to come in and try to confuse what your mission is in life, try to confuse what God has called me to do. So it's very important that we do everything that we can to discern the will of God and to move forward according to his plan and not ours when we're called to do something. One more thing I want to bring up, something you might not know about Saul. Elijah fled for his life, and Elisha fled for his life, and Jeremiah was constantly thrown in prison, and Isaiah, every prophet in the Bible basically had a terrible, terrible, horrible time trying to speak to the Jews about what God was saying. But Samuel was different. He was cut from a different cloth. You think we have fire and brimstone preachers today? Let me show you what Samuel did. Remember that Saul decided to spare Agag, king of the Amalekites. 1 Samuel 15, verse 32. Then Samuel said, "Bring Agag, king of the Amalekites, here to me." So Agag came to him cautiously, and Agag said, "Surely the bitterness of death is past." Right? He's trepidatious. He's scared of Samuel. He knows. But Samuel said, "As your sword has made women childless, so shall your mother be childless among women." And Samuel hacked Agag in pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. So yeah, that guy wasn't messing around. Have a good day. Be blessed. snowmeadowuniversity@gmail.com. You can send me a message if you would like to pray about some things or just to say hello. Actually, you can contact me anytime for any reason. I do a lot of music stuff with that email address on another channel, so it might take a moment for me to get back with you, but yeah, go ahead and hit me up. Speaking of my music channel, I'll leave a link in the description. Actually, you can see it right there. Merry Christmas. Love you guys. Oops. Sit. Stay. Very good. Sit. Stay. Okay, go play.